Discovering possibilities and potential with passion every day. This is a TPPN production.
Your ability to understand how it works, to understand how it works.
Q-tape. Possibilities network. And 3, 2, 1. Live from Indianapolis, Indiana, this is the iPad Possibilities Show. With your host, Tim Chatton.
Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 62, GUI Mockup Possibilities. Well, welcome. Today is the live Sunday night show of the iPad Possibilities Podcast. I'm here with John tonight. How are you doing tonight?
Good, Tim. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. It's been a fun week so far.
Good.
So, let's see. There's been a lot of things going on here. I've been, on Twitter more and finding some interesting articles. So, let's just kind of jump into some things I've been finding. The first was an article as the iPad is used as an assistive device for cerebral palsy. And I saw this on Twitter. It's like, it's kind of interesting. And I was reading through this, and the article basically just says how the iPad is not like a laptop, not like an iPod Touch, but just a new breed of device where you're actually able to install some apps here's one. It mentions Prolo Q2Go as a app to help people in that kind of disability. So I think it's just the beginning of what they call AAC tools, which are augmentative and alternative communication tools, I guess. And kind of interesting article. I'm not as familiar with that area, but did you have a chance to read through that, or is this brand new to you here?
It was new to me when I saw it in the show notes. It's pretty interesting. I mean, there's so much that has helped various disabilities with computer technology, and it's just interesting that the iPad is being adopted very quickly to do those types of things as well. So it's very portable, has a great battery life, and has the power to do some of these interesting things. So glad to see it.
Yep, definitely. And the next thing I want to talk about was I had a question from a listener this week about how you could use an iPhone to control your iPad during a presentation. I'm thinking this is impossible right now with Keynote. Do you know, John, of any other apps that link an iPhone with an iPad to kind of run a presentation?
I have not seen one. That doesn't mean that there isn't one lurking somewhere in the App Store. But it is an interesting premise. We think of the iPad being very portable, but if you're going to use it in a presentation and hook it to a monitor, then it becomes less portable.
Yeah.
Because it's got this cable hanging off the end. So it is an interesting concept. If somebody hasn't done it, I hope they do it soon.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting. I was looking into if there are IR dongles or how you do this. I know you could do this through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, but I think it's something that Apple should probably add to their app. I mean, they've got that Keynote remote that works well with the Mac version. They should, I think, add that support to the iPad. That'd be fantastic.
Yep, definitely.
So the next thing, I was, I'm in the App Store quite a bit looking through stuff and seeing what Apple deems as, the top grossing apps, and something, just stood out weird. I saw Farmville in the list of top grossing iPad apps. And I downloaded it to check, hey, did Farmville get updated for the iPad? And oddly enough, they did not. It's still an iPhone app, but Apple is listing it alongside as part of the iPad apps. Is this a new thing, or am I just, what's going on here?
No, it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that they were doing any of that kind of crossover. Obviously, for a universal app, it would make sense.
Yeah,
but not for really an iPhone. The only way to play on the iPad is pixel doubling kind of app. I don't think that should count for the iPad, unless they're actually tracking. And I'm not sure how they would do this, but maybe they are tracking which devices are getting that download. And maybe the iPad are downloading Farmville. So
maybe, yeah. It's just kind of a weird thing. It's like, what the heck? This is not an iPad app.
Yeah, I mean, there's several iPhone games that I play on the iPad when I'm have a few minutes of downtime, and pixel doubling works pretty well on most of them. But that doesn't mean that it's really an iPad app. And one of them that I used to play all the time has recently come out as a universal, so they recognize the fact that it was going to be a whole lot better game if they put some graphics in there that were high enough res for the iPad. So.
Yeah, kind
Farmville
of
needs to do that.
Yeah, Farmville is massive, I guess. And I'm sure there might be other ones. I didn't check to see the full list of those iPhone apps that snuck their way into the iPad listings. So it's kind of a weird phenomenon. So let me know through the feedback mediums if you find other apps like that. And from there, I wanted to... Everyone knows, probably, after listening to the last episode, that Frash is out. That's the Flash plugin for the iPad. And it works pretty well. Video is still a no-go, so I can finally access Blue Mike's website.
Oh, great.
And you haven't had a chance to install because you don't jailbreak yet. Is that correct?
I have not jailbroken an iPad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's probably for the best. Flash. Flash isn't the best. It worked all right. And it was kind of disappointing, though. All the YouTube sites, normally they work great on the web browser because the HTML5 magic they do. But with this plugin installed, it just assumes, hey, let's default to Flash because you have that plugin.
Oh, great. So
I can't watch any of it.
You lose all the advantages you had.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's still its infancy, but it was fun to play with, and I think I'll keep it on just for, look what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if there was some toggle switch to say
on,
on or off, and so ignore the fact that it's here if I'm going to a site that has a video on it.
Yeah, if I go to m.youtube.com, it works fine, but yeah, it's just kind of frustrating. It does make it very clear what sites use Flash and which sites don't, though, at the same time. And let's see, from there, one thing I wanted to mention, if you're a Walmart guy and you love shopping at Walmart, this December you can pick up your iPad there. So just kind of a little announcement there. The iPad's going to be going more and more universal across more and more stores. So kind of a cool thing. Do you use Walmart much, John, over there in Arizona?
I tend to stay away from Walmart as much as possible, but sometimes you can't avoid it. So it's the place where it's got a ton of stuff and usually decent prices. So
yeah, I'm guessing it'll be $5 lower than your local Apple store. So
yeah.
So yeah, the next I got another Twitter thing I saw was iPad and education. And this link brought me to kind of a presentation Robert Craven did at, I'm not sure what event it was. It says ISTE, iPad and Education. And so I was looking through here. Basically, they introduced what an iPad is and kind of the basics of it, how to add content to it and syncing and all that kind of stuff. And then they kind of cover a list of, apps that are for education, and they divide them into productivity, reference, creativity, subject specific, and miscellaneous. So for productivity, they mentioned Dropbox, Goodreader, iWork, Evernote, Google, Skype / AIM, thatquiz.org, Jumbo Calculator, Huddle, Print Central, Drag and Dictate, QuickieQ.com, it's a web app, and iTalk Lite and Air Display. And then they go through, the other different categories, and they list off the different apps, and then after that they kind of show you how you get your iPad online and mobile learning in the classroom. They wrap it up with some favorite apps that people use, and we've got some resources on there. So it's kind of interesting talk I ran across.
Well, yeah, I think that does bode well for education adopting it. I'm trying to remember what ISTE stands for. I know that TE is technology and education, but I can't remember what the IS stands for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to see it, because I think the iPad will definitely be a good learning tool for a number of classrooms.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting. I'd love to hear that talk if they ever release it in audio form. But the final thing I wanted to talk about before we get in the main topic of the day, and that is GUI mocking up, of apps, is Wired Magazine. I meant to add this to the show notes last Sunday, but they updated their apps. So the magazine episodes are only $4 a piece now, and you don't have to buy a separate app each time. It's all in-app purchases now, which is a big plus. I might actually look into using this app more because of that one change of, actually two changes, the price and having it all in one app. Did you have a chance to download the update?
No, I haven't. But it bodes well to see the price come down a little bit, and I do think it's wise for them to do the in-app purchase. But it'd be nice if they could get that price down a little lower.
Yeah, I think I don't know if $2.50. That's what I'm hoping for. $1 an episode, $1 an issue, they'd sell a lot more than, at $4. They'd make it up in volume easily.
Yeah. So as the sheer mass of iPads are growing out there, then maybe that's something that they'll look at doing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that an iPad owner would not buy at least a token copy of Wired Magazine for $2 or $1 or whatever. Yeah.
So that's kind of the news topics and things I wanted to just cover before we get to the main topic. And John, you've been doing a lot of research here on how to basically design user interface on iPad and iPhone applications. So why don't you lead this discussion here, and I'll add my thoughts as I have them from time to time.
Sure. So I started looking at some of the things that the iPad is really potentially very good at, and one of those things was actually mocking up things. I work in in technology, and we do a lot of different things with drawing apps to mock up things, and I work with designers who spend a lot of time doing wireframes for websites, or just some kind of mock-up for an application. And so iPad is seemingly a great tool for that, and so I started exploring that. So it was interesting that there are a number of these types of tools that came out first on the iPhone, and most of them are geared toward just the iPhone. But there were several of them that have come out for the iPad, and so I started looking at them, and really they divide into two different categorizations. One is just drawing, so it's just giving you a mock-up, a wireframe, something that is visual in nature. But then there's actually some that will actually produce code for this, so that as you mock up with the tools and the controls that you would see on an iPhone or an iPad, that it will actually produce some Objective-C Xcode files, so that you can actually use this mock-up in your coding.
That's pretty amazing, because that's one of the big hurdles for me. I don't know code, and I'd love for a day that I could just graphically design an app. I know that's kind of far-fetched, but that'd be very cool.
Well, it's not too far-fetched, and there have been a number of development environments, I shouldn't say a number, but a few development environments that have come out in the past that have allowed you to do that kind of thing, or maybe 90% of an application. And actually with the iPad and the iPhone, Interface Builder is really a tremendously powerful tool for doing that, for designing the interface and actually putting things together. And my my group that does some apps. We've been using it pretty heavily lately, so I'm really thrilled with that tool. But what these mockup tools do is they do create this code. Is one of the options. You can still get just the visual design, but you can get the code as well. The unfortunate thing, I think, is that they don't produce interface builder code. They produce Xcode. So, it's not like you can do most of the mock-up here and then export it and then tweak it in interface builder, which is the graphical thing. If you're going to tweak it, you're now having to go into the code and tweak the code. So I was a little disappointed in that, but it's still a long way down the road for doing that kind of thing. So let's kind of get into the meat of them. So I'll go over the ones that are drawing only, and then I'll go over the few that actually going to produce some code. So the first one I looked at was called App Designer HD, and there's actually another one of almost the same name. I think it's App Designer for iPad or something, which I was not able to review, but it looks, if you look at the screenshots in the App Store, they look very, very similar, and I'm not sure if the other one has any additional capabilities, but App Designer here, which I'll try to give you a screenshot of, is well, it's a very simple thing. I'll kind of try to use the same questions for each app to kind of compare them, but I started out with what kind of apps can this be used for? Well, App Designer HD is just an iPhone development app. That's all it really is. I should say iPhone or iPod Touch. I was a little unsure why they made that distinction, because all they do is really they bring up a little stencil of the iPhone, and you can drag controls. This kind of looking at a mirror image is kind of interesting, so I'm trying to adjust myself here.
Yeah.
Which way do I go?
The other way. The other way.
We have a delay too, so that's kind of interesting as well. But it's essentially you grab a stencil and you move it into.
Yep. The other way.
There we go.
Yeah.
You move it into
almost there.
You move it into this frame.
You're there. Yep.
Now the thing about it is that these stencils are pretty much like you can find anywhere on the web for any kind of drawing program. So they're non-functional. They're just kind of a visual look at a stencil.
And John, do these not align anyway? Is it just as you drop it?
There seems to be no real alignment. In fact, the one of the questions I asked was how to get stuff out of the application, right? And the only way you get this out is you take a screenshot. And it takes a screenshot of the entire screen, not just the iPhone, but the entire screen. So the controls are not customizable at all. They're just images that you're dragging onto this thing. It's not very flexible, pretty rudimentary. Now, it's only 99 cents. So is it worth 99 cents? I don't think that you're really going to get your 99 cents worth out of it, quite frankly. I mean, you could do it with any drawing application you have already.
Right.
And there are free drawing applications you can get. I wouldn't really spend a lot of time on that.
And that's App Designer HD, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I took a look at a product called Stencils.
Mm-hmm.
And Stencils is an iPhone app.
Okay.
And it was intriguing because it seemed to have a lot of capabilities and it seemed to be able to allow you to you can create kind of a walkthrough, if you will, where you can create multiple screens and connect them together. But what I did find out was that it's a little confusing to get into. It's not very easy. It's and it's iPhone only. It's really for designing an iPhone application and nothing else.
Sure.
And it's got this overlay on one side here, which you can get rid of, but it's just it's not intuitive.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it from the image there.
It does have a couple of interesting things. Is you can share these files that you create with the application Bump. I don't know if you've used that, which was designed to share contacts between iPhones.
I've heard of it. Never used it, though.
Yeah. So you can do that. You can upload them to the web, and you can also do a screenshot. Controls aren't not very flexible in you can resize controls, but you can't like this is a picture, an image control, but I can't change the image in there. It's the Mona Lisa, and that's it. So not very flexible. I forget how much this one was, a few bucks, but
that was Stencils. Yep.
Yeah, Stencils, okay. Right. So then there's another one called Sketchy, and Sketchy is definitely an iPad app. Cool. And it's very much a drawing app with mockups in mind. I kind of liked it. It was very easy to use.
And it looks like it's for iPad apps as well, right?
Yes, it will do iPad, iPhone. It has stencils for both. Now, it doesn't do a full size. Obviously the stencil window is a little bit smaller.
Yeah, you need like
an iPad
anyway to do some full size.
But and it also lets you mock up web applications and potentially anything, because you can just start with a clean slate. Has a lot of different controls, which you can kind of, not sure how well I can. It's kind of a little too bright to show the detail, but it's a lot of different controls. They're unfortunately not customizable either, so whatever default text is in them, you get that. You can change their size, move them around and stuff like that, but you can't really change the controls. If it's a checkbox, it's going to be checked or not. It is what it is. But it's a good drawing aid for somebody who's coming directly from a drawing program. Makes it a little easier because of the controls available. You don't have to do everything from scratch, and it's a nice app to do visual mock-up in.
And the export, is it simply an image then?
It will do a screenshot. It will do an email sketch, and here's the interesting thing about it. I'm glad you asked that. Is it will also export a Balsamic, and Balsamic is a web application that apparently a fair number of web designers use to mock up sites and communicate with their clients. And so it will actually export into that kind of format so that you could.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was kind of unique in that I hadn't heard of any other apps using that kind of thing before. So then iMockups. So iMockups is, in some respects, it's similar to Sketchy. iPhone, iPad, websites, other things. It's very much a drawing tool. It's very simple to use, easy. You can get a screenshot. You can email a PNG file. And the interesting thing is that it will do either the current page you're on, or it will do the whole project. So you have a number of screens that will export all of those. So that's kind of nice. The controls that it uses are a little bit more customizable. They typically have a dialogue, so you can customize, like a text heading, or if it's I don't know if you're familiar with a segmented control, which is a bar with multiple different buttons within that bar.
Sure.
So you can actually type in the name of each one of those segments, and it will reflect that. You can turn checkboxes on or off, or other controls on or off. So it's in that respect, it's better than Sketchy app because it has that. But it's really nice too, and I like it. This is one of those $9.99 ones, Mockups. But
okay.
I think you have value here for $9.99. You really do. I also looked at OmniGraffle for iPad, which I don't know that we've kind of gone over OmniGraffle before, and the world knows OmniGraffle. OmniGraffle will let you do pretty much anything.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. Was it easy downloading stencils for mocking up stuff like this?
Stencils are not greatly intuitive. At least the last time I downloaded them, I didn't download them recently, but I mean it's not difficult if you're going to be using them and you want to download them.
If you're a developer, you probably have some sort of a brain on your head.
Yeah. And it's nice because it can be used. It's a freehand tool as well as a stencil placing tool. It's got all the alignment capabilities and everything. So it's still easy to use. You can email. You can send a PDF via email. You can do a screenshot. You can save as an image and pull one off, I guess, through iTunes. I've never tried to do that, but just like you could load them up, I imagine you could take them out of iTunes once you're synced up.
Yeah, and you're able to work with OmniGraffle on the desktop, so that's kind of a nice bonus, right?
Right. And then, so it's as flexible as the stencils are, although, typically most stencils are not very customizable. You might be able to change some text or something, but typically most stencils, like if it's a slider indicator, you're probably not going to be able to adjust how much should be, how much the dot should be slid over on the slider, or a progress bar or something without going in and editing the stencil, which makes it less useful. But it's certainly very flexible, and I think even though it's a much heftier price tag than most of the others, if you're doing more than just mock-ups, you're going to find this the tool to use. So then that kind of wraps up the drawing only kind of ones. There were two that I did that actually produced code. One is called DAP, which is the App Design app. And it is, again, an iPhone app.
Sure. What's DAP stand for, out of curiosity?
I think it just stands for Design App.
Design App, okay.
The App Design app is what it's called, the App Design app.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So, and in this one, you can create pages. It's fairly easy to use. You can export PDFs, or you can export the Xcode via email. It does a visual preview kind of mode, so while you can customize all the controls in it, basically you're only seeing visual stuff, so you're not getting a lot of functionality out of it. But it's still kind of interesting. You can do a little walkthrough with it. It's iPhone only, so you're not going to make your iPad apps with this. But for iPhone stuff, it's pretty good. And it wasn't too bad. It shows its early stages here. I kind of think that the developer's probably going to be making it significantly better with future versions.
Like a $5 app, or how much would this one run?
I'm trying to recall. I think it was probably in that range of $5 or $6.
Okay.
Maybe you can check that out while I go on to the next one.
We'll do that right now.
Okay, and then the last one I did is called Interface. And Interface is an iPad app. This is actually Interface HD.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually sell two different versions. They sell an Interface, which is for the iPhone, and an Interface HD. And this is a $9.99 app for the HD version. This particular one, I'm probably not upset that it's iPad focused,
right?
Because you get a lot out of this. What you do is you get, if I can bring this up here, is you get a lot of ability to create different controls. You have a huge ability to customize them. So besides the size and placement and everything, you can customize. I don't know if you can see this, but you can, customize different sliders to show how much progress.
Mm-hmm.
You can certainly customize the segmented control to have different names on it. You can also, go into a preview mode here. And I don't know if you can see this navigation bar I created at the top here, but it has one button on the navigation bar, which is page 2. And so if I press that, it goes to page 2. And page 2 doesn't have much on it, but it can go back to page 1. If I hit it right, it'll go back
and
to
is
page
the style similar to are they mimicking like the iWork style of development as far as interface?
I'm not sure I follow what the iWork style is.
With like Pages, you have that home screen where you have all your different projects and you just open or duplicate that project.
Yeah, most of these, particularly the ones for the iPad, have duplicated that kind of document view that you can go into. So, so this I found was very easy to use, but also very powerful. Like I said, it exports to Xcode. You can upload to the cloud. They have apparently a website that you can upload stuff to, and you can email an image. Very flexible as far as the controls and customization of the controls. But it is just iPad.
Sure.
So if you want to design an iPad app, and you're going to do a lot of that, this probably would be worth your investment. And probably the iPhone version of this is probably worth your investment on the iPhone.
Sure. Do you feel that these apps are at a stage where they would help you as a developer or developers as a whole?
I think several of these do. I think Interface HD, iMockups, Sketchy apps. Those would probably be the ones, primarily because I think it's important to have the size of the iPad to really muck around with. But I think those kind of things really help you visualize what an app is going to look like. We use pad and paper for a lot of it, but really trying to you sketch a control on a piece of paper, and is it at all accurate, the size?
Yeah.
It's not. And so maybe when you start to put stuff together in Interface Builder or in code, and then you start looking at it, it's like, well, what looked okay on a piece of paper, all of a sudden text becomes unreadable, or it just doesn't work out. And being able to look at some of this stuff very quickly, I think is a great value, and I think more developers will start to use it.
Is this kind of the beginning of, developers trying to develop apps on the iPad itself? Do you think we'll have one day an Xcode for iPad? Because I think it'd be a real natural thing to be writing code and testing the app all on the same device. Or is that kind of a far-fetched thing where you should be really writing your code on your computer and then building it out and testing on your iPad once you're done with that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of power with testing with writing on another device and testing on the device you want to run it on. That's not to say that I don't think that in the future there will be some kind of maybe simple development environment on the iPad. I could see something like, I don't know if you're too young to remember it, but HyperCard that was on the original Mac.
Yeah.
That kind of a development environment I think would be a great boon to the iPad. And it just depends upon whether Apple wants to let that kind of thing be on the iPad.
Sure.
But I think a desktop machine or even a laptop still is going to give you a better environment. I mean, if you're really coding apps, you're using a keyboard, and you're not really using the touch interface much. And we were just working on a iPad app yesterday, and it was a nice process to be able to not only build and run in the simulator, but just plug in the iPad and build and download that app to the iPad and run it on there. And then I'm still debugging with the computer while I run it on the iPad. So I get to see the actual operation on the iPad, and yet I'm collecting a lot of information without worrying about the whole development environment being hung up because of bad code or something. Yeah. So I don't see the desktop going away, but I could see some simple development environment being a real boon to the iPad and the iPhone as well.
And I hear developers talk about needing a powerful machine, the right code. That I never understood. Is developing processor intensive at all? Because I've heard developers that have to get the Mac Pro and all these high-end machines to do that kind of work.
Well, I would not say that iPhone and iPad apps are typically incredibly processor intensive to develop them.
Yeah.
If a developer is developing web apps or desktop apps, then those can get quite hefty. But you do want a machine that's gonna compile your code quickly.
Sure.
And it just so happens that most iPhone and iPad apps they're single purpose apps for the most part, right? And so they're not incredibly complex. Now, obviously, something like a word processor like iWorks or the spreadsheet numbers, those things are going to be more complex because there's just a lot of moving parts in those applications, and so it might take a fair amount of power to be able to do that compile and build in a rapid time where you don't have a developer twiddling their thumbs waiting for things to be ready to test. But for the most part, I think most iPhone and iPad apps are probably fairly simple to compile.
Yeah, and the Mac apps is where they really want a powerful machine. It's not for the actual coding itself, but it's for building it out and testing it each time. That's the
right. I mean, coding is in reality, even with an integrated development environment like you do with Xcode, an interface builder. I mean, there's all kinds of tools happening there that help a developer with code coloring and checking and syntax checking and all those kind of things. And that takes a little bit of power, but not a huge amount of power. And some developers still work in, a text editor. Yeah. But the reality is the compile.
Yeah.
The compile stage is where you want to make sure that happens pretty quickly, and you're not wasting developer time waiting for some code to compile.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. I've never, gone in depth as far as why you really do need a powerful machine to write code, and it's very interesting listening to an actual developer talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there are applications that have hundreds, thousands of lines of code in them on the desktop.
Yeah.
I would hesitate to say that even the most complex iPhone or iPad application is probably a tenth of really complex desktop applications. But but still, I mean, it's a great environment. The faster the machine, the sooner you're productive with doing your test, and you're not waiting for anything. So
yeah, for sure. Any final thoughts on the GUI Mockup rundown here?
There were a couple of ones that I didn't get to test. If any of our listeners have their favorite, I'd love to hear from them if they want to shoot an email out to us. But in general, I think there were some stellar ones. I'll be doing a full write-up of this.
Awesome. Cool.
And so, take a look at it if that's your cup of tea.
Yep, definitely. And we'll have that location at the end of the show after we do our picks. So, do you got a pick ready, or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, my pick, we've been talking about, graphical user interface and apps to do that. And I came across a website. It's called paddalicious.com. And this is a website. It's supposed to be used on your Mac or Windows machine from that web browser and not your iPad. But you can access it on your iPad. And basically, it's a great resource for how to create and deliver content for the iPad. So they've got how-tos. They've got a how-to view web apps on the iPad, a step-by-step instruction on how to enable a web app to be displayed full screen on the iPad. And they also have a sharing your web app how-to. So they have a step-by-step instruction on how to automatically deploy your iPad web app to your mobile Me Sites folder so it can be viewed by others. So those are the how-tos they currently have. Now they have a number of different tools that you can use as well. The first is, create single-page web apps. So you can create a single-page scrollable text, has images, audio clips, video, and all that kind of stuff. They also have a, tool for creating iPad photo web apps to create a photo app, an online web app using, Aperture, iPhoto, or the Finder. And they have two more. I want to just let you know what they are. And this next one is very cool for me to read about. It's a tool to create digital books. So it'll automatically turn text files into digital books for reading in iBooks. And the publications can actually also include images and audio and even video clips. And it'll automatically turn, this file into an EPUB, capable format. And then the final tool they have is render text to image. So you're able to adapt Keynote slides to work on iPad by rendering titles to images using non-default typefaces. So that's kind of the tool for that. So those complicated keynotes that don't play well on the iPad, this tool is designed to kind of alleviate that problem. So it's called paddalicious.com, and that will be in the show notes. And I just ran across this today and thought it would be kind of a perfect companion to what we've been talking about today.
Very interesting. I didn't know about that site. Have you tried out any of these tools, Tim?
I just discovered it today, but I tried out the create digital books, and it turned out pretty well. I was very impressed with it. It's still in its infancy as far as the complexity, but it's got some good beginnings here.
Okay, great. Well, so what I came up with today was one thing I wanted to come back to was it was one of the two outlining apps that I reviewed last week, and I found myself using it quite a bit this week, and that is Outliner for iPad from carbonfin.com. And so I definitely wanted to just give them a shout out and recommend their app again. And then the other thing is WeRule in the iPad 3G. So I know WeRule has been brought up on many shows and everything, but now I have kind of more freedom to play it occasionally. So
the iPhone version, it's so cramped with all the stuff we now have in our kingdoms. It's great for harvesting crops, but that's about it, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, have you been able to find me on WeRule? I sent you an email with my username.
Yes, I did, and thank you for making some dragon scales for me.
Oh, not a problem. I love to make the dragon scales. I now have all 4 realms. I just need to expand those out. And
Very good.
So we roll an outliner. Awesome. And any other thoughts before we get to the feedback and kind of closing section here?
I just want to encourage our readers to shoot us an email or call the phone number and give us some feedback. We'd love to hear it, and we just don't hear enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
couldn't agree more.
Great.
And with that said, nice kind of segue there to feedback. You can leave us an email at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com and 209-542-iPad. Just call and leave whatever's on your mind about the iPad, and I'd be happy to share it on the show or just email back to you personally. So just send that in. That'd be greatly appreciated. And if you want to support this podcast, you can do that by going to tppn.tv and clicking on the iPad Premium page and subscribing. All the info is right there, and that's the best way to support this podcast. And you can also go into iTunes in the App Store for $2.99. There's an iPhone app that gives you early access to the shows. So it's called the iPad Possibilities Podcast app, and it's $2.99 in the App Store right now. So with that said, you've been listening to the iPad Possibilities Podcast on tppn.tv. This has been John and Tim, and we will speak to you guys again next Sunday night live at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at tppn.tv.